Hi. As many of you know, I make my own dog food, and I've been asked by many people exactly how I make it, what I put into it, that type of thing. So I thought I would run through the process and let everybody see. I do want to start with a disclaimer. I am not a veterinarian. I don't have a PhD in nutrition. My recipe comes from talking to several veterinarians. I did a lot of research into the different dog diets, see which ones actually make sense, because it's just like for humans. There's a ton of different suggestions on what you should eat and what you should not eat. And dog food is no different. There's a lot of suggestions on how much of this or how much of that, or do you need that or you don't need that. So I found a lot of controversy. I do remember way back when talking to a PhD nutritionalist that worked for Purina, and he told me that he believed nutrition was the science of opinion. That's what he said. And what he meant by that is just exactly how it sounds. There's so many different opinions on, do they need this? Do they need that? This is a better protein. That's a better protein. This is bad for them. No, actually it's good for them. Just like what you hear with the human diets. So anyhow, I did the best I could to sort through all that. The diet I use is one that was recommended by a veterinarian, so it's not just something I made up. But anyhow, so what I do is I make up a big pan of, I use a few different recipes, but I'm going to show you the one that I use a lot right now. And this particular recipe, you may say, well, how are you cooking every day? How long does it last? For me, it doesn't last very long because I have 7 dogs. For somebody who has 1 or 2 dogs, it's going to take you 4 or 5 days, maybe even a week, just depending on how much food your dog eats. Mine kind of vary. I have one that eats 2 cups of this twice a day. Most of my other ones eat 3 cups twice a day. So you can see there's a lot of variation in how many dogs you have and what type of a diet that they actually need. Basically their metabolism, are they young, do they have any special, are they very high energy, something that would require them to need more calories. So there's a lot of variation, but I'm going to show you what I do. Okay, so first of all, I use a nice big pan. This is a 16-inch skillet. I also have a big 16-inch cast iron skillet that I use as well too, which I really like. But I use a bigger pan like that so I can cook more at a time. My favorite protein source to use is ground turkey, and this is a 1-pound package. I actually get it at Aldi's Food. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I get it at Aldi's Food, and it's $1.99 for a pound, which is one of these packages. I found that to be very economical. Ground beef is in general going to cost you more. Ground beef is also more fatty, so yeah, you drain off the fat. That's great, but this, a lot of times I don't even have to drain the fat because there's not that much on it. It's pretty lean. So this is my favorite. I will normally cook up 5 of these at a time. So in other words, 5 pounds. This recipe is going to be for anything between 5 to 6 pounds of turkey or beef, whichever it is that you prefer to use. I want to start by saying I would never, ever, ever feed these meats raw, because our processing systems that we use in this country, it's just not the healthiest for eating raw. They can also pick up salmonella. Dogs are not immune to that, so I would never feed any type of meat out of the grocery store raw. I would always cook it. But as a side note to that, one of the reasons that I do make my own food is because I believe that the less they're processed, the healthier they are for the dog, just like for people. So I try not to overcook or recook or anything like that. I try to just cook it once, serve it, put it in the refrigerator. When I reserve it, I serve it cold. I don't even reheat it up. Dogs love it. Okay, so I start with that. I start with 5 packages of this, and I just brown them in the pan. I'm going to start by doing that. I'm going to turn the camera off so you don't have to watch the turkey brown, and then I'll turn it back on to show you the next step. Okay, welcome back. So what we have here is we have our turkey browning, and it's just about ready here. This spatula, I know it's oversized. It's actually for flipping pancakes, but I like it because it works well with the amount of meat that I have here and the size of the pan. So we get to this point. If you want to drain off the fat, you can, but this is turkey and there really is not a lot of fat on it. If you were doing beef, you would definitely want to drain the fat before you go to the next step. Truthfully, browning it is what takes the longest in this whole process. So we basically have it brown. There's a few pieces that are not brown yet, but they'll finish cooking as we go through the rest of the process here. The next thing that I do is I take a dozen eggs, yes, a full 12 eggs, and I just dump them in. So I'll break them apart so they can cook better, and I just let them cook in with the turkey or the beef, whatever you're going to be using. Now the shells, I cracked these open ahead of time just so that you didn't have to watch me crack open 12 eggs. But what I do with the shells, they're right over here. You save them, set them aside. Some people will actually crumple them and just put them in the mixture. But what I do is I give them to the dogs as a treat. So right after they're done eating, or even right before they eat, just depending, because you don't want to keep them just sitting there very long. But I will just literally give it to them as a treat. They crunch them down and they love them. But the actual shells have a lot of nutrients in. There's a lot of calcium and other nutrients. And on the insides of the shells, there's a membrane, and that membrane has a lot of nutritional value. So this is a good thing to give to them. I held off for the longest time because I was concerned it might be sharp and it might cut them, but that is not, cut their mouths I should say, but that is definitely not the case at all. Falcor, come here. Oh, here we have another one. I mean, they, as you can see, they absolutely love them. Yep. I mean, to them, they're like a big treat. There you go. So, save the egg shells, give them to them, good nutritional value. They think they're a treat. Okay, then, as I'm mixing the eggs in, and they're cooking, they don't even have to finish cooking completely because they will as this process goes along. But then what I like to do is I take oats, and they're just regular rolled oats like you use for making oatmeal. And I take about a cup of them, just dump it in. And again, we're just going to stir that into the mixture. See, this nice big spatula helps us happen a little bit faster. So we just want to make sure that we stir this all up so everything can finish cooking. And everything's nicely mixed. And then the final stage is the vegetables. And what I do is I get frozen vegetables, and these are the ones that I have. Just a little bag of frozen vegetables, and this happens to be a medley. You can get ones that are all carrots, all broccoli. The only one you don't want to do a lot of is peas and corn. So to add peas and corn in is fine, but just don't make that the primary vegetable. Broccoli is actually a really, really good vegetable to use. But anyhow, so I'll show you what for here. We do 2 cups. So 2 cups, they're frozen solid, which is good. Because what that does, I turn the heat off, and I just mix these in. And the heat from the ground turkey will thaw the vegetables, and the frozenness from the vegetables will help cool the ground turkey so I can feed it to my dogs a little bit sooner. If you're making it ahead of time, it doesn't really matter, but it's just kind of a nice little plus if you're going to make the food and then feed it to your dogs right away. But that's it. That's how I make it. That's all there is to it. The only other things that I add to this, now this I'll just let sit for a minute or two and it's ready to go. The only other things that I'll add is I add a healthy oil. I like to use virgin olive oil or salmon oil. And for the olive oil, it's about 2 tablespoons per dog per meal. For the salmon oil, you want to follow whatever the instructions say on the back of the salmon oil. The one I'm using right now says 4 pumps. So you want to just follow the instruction. And the last thing that I add, just to make sure we've got everything covered, I like to add a good multivitamin. You want to get one that has, at least for me, I like the ones that are all natural, that don't have a lot of, or don't have any preservatives. See, like this one says it's natural. There are no preservatives. It also has glucosamine, which is good for the big dogs. So this is a really nice one that I really, really like. There are several other ones that I'll kind of rotate between, just depending on where I can get the best price at the time. So what I do is I would now take my 1 cup measure and I would put 3 cups in the dog's food, put my healthy oil on top, and put a couple of the vitamins. Serve it to them, they gobble it down. One other thing I want to mention though is that this is not what I feed the puppies. The puppies, their diet has to be a little bit more specialized. So what the puppies get is they get a large breed puppy food. I happen to use Purina Pro Plan. I soak it in water so it's nice and soft, so it's easy for them to digest. And well, for example, I have 3 puppies right now that are between the age of 4 months and 6 months. They get 2 cups of the Purina Pro Plan puppy, large breed puppy, wet down, not dry, wet down, because it expands in volume, and so 2 cups of it wet is more than 2 cups, or I should say the other way around. 2 cups dry would be a lot more food than 2 cups wet. So you measure it when it's wet. They get 2 cups of the Pro Plan puppy and then 1 cup of this mixture. After 6 months, I very gradually start to switch it over. So by the time they're a year, they're just getting the homemade food. Now there's another recipe that I use where I just bake chicken breasts and cut those up and use them, and I'll do another video and show you how I make that. This one's kind of a nice one to just keep on hand. I just take whatever is extra, I put it in a Tupperware container, stick it in the refrigerator. It stays good for a good week, and it's just nice. I always have this homemade food on hand. So I think that's about everything I wanted to cover with this. If anybody has any questions when you watch this video, feel free to reach out to me and ask me. I'll answer them as best as I can. Thanks. Okay, just a couple of things to add to clarify. The vitamins, that they only get once a day. Everything else I showed you is per meal. So the healthy oils, the 2 to 3 cups of food, all that is per meal. The only thing that's not is the vitamins. That I only give them once a day. The other thing I wanted to mention was fruit. Fruit is really good for a dog as long as you're using fresh fruit. Don't use canned fruit, especially if it has like the added sugar to it. If it doesn't, you can use it. But if it has added sugar, you don't want to do that because it's just too much sugar for the dog's system. I'll take a whole banana and just break pieces off and feed it to the dogs as treats, and they love it. So every day they get some type of fruit. An apple, slice it up, just don't give them the core. There's only a few fruits that are not good for them. One obviously is grapes. Don't give them grapes or any grape products. And then the other one, star fruit, is not good for them. It can be very toxic to some dogs. So before you give them a fruit, just do a quick Google search. Find out if it's safe for them to have or not. Most fruits are though. And blueberries they love. I will give them cantaloupe. To them, like I said, it's a treat. Instead of giving them a bone or something as a treat, I just give them some fresh fruit. So just wanted to add those last 2 things as a little bit of clarity.